grab your goat, grab your mechanical owl, because it is time for the Witches Movie Coven. I did that all by myself.
You did.
Every Wednesday at this exact time, witches gather in a coven, witches gather in a movie coven with stuffed plushy goats, funny dolls on a regular basis to each other about movies. This week's movie that we're going to argue about is called Clash of the Titans. Teet, teet, teet. Let's get into some mythology here, shall we? We hope you all watched it. Let us introduce ourselves. This little girl, I got to put. I am Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts. You might know me from The Witching Hour, my regular podcast. You might know me from Ghost Adventures. You might know me from my new book that doesn't come out yet, The Doll Craft, and all sorts of places. Right. I know everybody has a copy but me. It's beautiful. I'm so proud. And anyway, let me pass you on to my beautiful co-host, Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Greene, and I am the author of Lights. Where is that one? I have your book. I don't have my book. Lights, Camera, Witchcraft. It is the critical history of witches in American film and television. I'm also a journalist, and I cover all things occult in the media, as well as an editor at Llewellyn Worldwide, working with wonderful authors like some of the ones we have sitting here in our coven. And I'm so excited to be back here this Wednesday in my home, joining my coven to discuss this very important movie.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Let's go down to Richard-Lael.
Hi, I am Richard-Lael. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were Richard, I would be a. That is right. I am known as the gentleman psychic. I'm a psychic and a medium, but I gained some weight. So who knows? Maybe I might be a psychic and a large before too long. No, actually. And in preparation for tonight's show, I actually, for the first time in more time than I would like to admit, went to the gym today. So, I'm not quite Greek god status. I'm a little closer to Bacchus at this point, but that's okay. It's perfectly acceptable. I am a psychic medium. I am known also from Ghost Adventures on occasion. You could see me on podcasts and University Magicus. I am everywhere that good gentlemen psychics are sold.
Thank you very much. And yes, he is. Jason.
My name's Jason. This is my latest book. This is Doll Craft. A Witch's Guide to Puppet Magic. Oh, wait, no, that's Patty's. This is mine. I'll stop talking about it all the time. I am one of those Llewellyn authors. I've written 10 books for Llewellyn so far, and I'm a witch, and my favorite coven is my movie coven.
Thank you very much. Wow. Now, Courtney may look a little different today. Courtney is not with us because she fell into a giant sinkhole somewhere in Massachusetts. But instead, we have another fabulous, familiar face, Thumper, to you.
Hello, I am Thumper Forge. I am an author with Llewellyn. I wrote the upcoming Chaos Apple, Magic and Discordianism for the Postmodern Witch, and I co-authored Virgo Witch, Divining the Details. I also write a blog for Patheos Pagan called Fivefold Law, and tonight I am playing the part of Courtney Buckley. So don't make me hex you, because men.
Today's film, it is called Clash of the Titans. It was from 1981. We're looking at the original. I think there may be a few versions along the way. And hopefully you did all watch it. But just in case, one of you or two of you may have missed it, Richard-Lael, do you have your always explicit and detailed and unbiased synopsis of this film?
I do have something. I'm going to tell you, great film, but the plot is all Greek to me. So,
ba-boom.
So, get in your time machines and go way back to 1981, because that was probably, I think I probably saw it through the 90s. But that was the last time I actually really saw it. I did not do my homework this week because I was not in the mood for Greek gods. But I do remember it, and I will try to recall. I'm going to read a little bit of this from, external sources, and then I'll kind of fill in with some things that I know that they missed. Perseus, son of Greek god Zeus, grows up on a deserted island. His destiny is to marry Princess Andromeda, who will someday rule the city of Joppa. But as long as the satyr Calibos, who uses a giant vulture to kidnap Andromeda's soul every night, is alive, no one can marry her. Perseus travels to Joppa, where he must defeat Calibos and other mythological monsters and rescue Andromeda. Now, that's like the watered down version. What I remember is there's a lot of hooters in this one. No, particularly one. There's one metal hooter.
Woohoo.
Boo boo, boo boo.
Boobo.
And if you loved Star Wars, then you would probably love this one too. Star Wars came out just a few years before. This is another adventure epic, hero's journey. It's not really very good on the Greek mythology aspect of it. So it was strange that I had to watch it in all of my history classes because it has nothing to do with Greek mythology excepting for some of the names. What I will say, though, is he ends up by slaying my heroine, my hero. He ends up by slaying the Gorgon, Medusa, as she's commonly known, and he destroys the Kraken. And then he ends up by marrying what's her name, and they lived happily ever after because they're gods, and they do live forever after until nobody worships them, and then they don't live anymore. And that's what I have.
Thank you. We got it. That is perfect. But just in case, there may be a little bit more information. Heather, is there 5 things that we really do need to know about this movie?
Sure. I'm going to save my commentary for later. I'm going to do my best. So this is just going to be very factual, as factual as I can be without giggling, talking about this movie, to be honest. So this movie, I'm going to do some basic information. Then we'll talk about the context of the movie, then the cast, and then the creator of the absolutely amazing special effects. And then number 5, which I forgot because I didn't write it down, but I have a number 5. So I'll get to that after. So we'll start with number 1, the basics. This came out, as someone of you said, in 1981. This was written by or directed by Desmond Davis. And it was a UK-US film, and it grossed $30 million. It has grossed $30 million.
I think it grossed a lot more than that.
And budget was $15 million, so it was considered a hit. Although generally speaking, it did not get good reviews, but it was considered successful in some degree. Distributed by Warner Brothers and MGM. The writer of the film was Beverly Cross. Interestingly enough, Beverly Cross is married to Maggie Smith, longtime marriage, and they were married at the time, which would explain Maggie's presence in this movie and perhaps some of the other actors as well. We'll get to that in a second. Beverly Cross also wrote Jason and the Argonauts in 1963, Jason and the Argonauts. So that's just some basic stuff about this wonderful film that we're seeing tonight. Number 2, the context. So as we heard from Richard-Lael, this was a time when sword and sorcery films and high fantasy was super popular. Star Wars kind of set it off for sure. It's a sci-fi film, but it really is more of a sword and sorcery film than it is a sci-fi film. Absolutely. It's sword and sorcery with a little bit of with an overlay of sci-fi. So it really set off a lot of things in our culture. Star Wars is a big moment in pop culture time. And this was one of the many films that came after that. You have, of course, the legacy of it being present in this film with the R2-D2 owl. You see him there. But aside from that, you have a host of sword and sorcery films, and I'm going to name some. So those of you who were around at the time or were young, you'll remember a lot of these films. You got Conan the Barbarian in 82, Beastmaster 82, one of my favorites as a child. Dragon Slayer was 81. You had Time Bandits, The Last Unicorn, Dark Crystal, of course, 82. Black Cauldron, the sad Black Cauldron, 85. Lady Hawk 85, Legend 85, Excalibur was 81. We almost had an Excalibur in this movie. A sword made with Valerian steel. You also had The Last Starfighter in '84. Of course, there were a bunch of others, but you had so many films at this period of time that were sword and sorcery films, and it's really was quite amazing, and a trend. So number 3, let's talk about the cast. You look at this film and you think, oh my goodness, but you're not going to know anybody in the cast. Well, that's absolutely untrue. Of course, you have Zeus as Laurence Olivier. Now, a lot of people know the name and they might not know some of his films at this day and age. He's not quite as familiar to modern audiences, but he was in so many films, an award-winning stage actor. He was in things like Rebecca, which I mentioned several shows ago, the Hitchcock film, Othello, Spartacus, Hamlet, 49th Parallel, Marathon Man. These are all older films, but this man won Academy Awards, Emmy Awards, British Academy Awards, Golden Globes. And he died in 1989, but he is a classic actor of Hollywood's history, British film history, stage history. Of course, similarly, you have Maggie Smith, who just passed in 2024. Most young audiences know her as Professor McGonagall, but of course, she was an epic actress of stage and screen. And I also recommend a more recent film, probably lesser known, that she was in, called The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. If you have not seen it, it is really fun and it is a great film. But she was also in Downton Abbey, if you haven't seen that. She was in Hook for something a little different, Sister Act, something a little different. Of course, A Room with a View. She's won 2 Academy Awards, 4 Emmy Awards, a Tony Award, 5 British Academy Film Awards, 3 Golden Globe Awards, and 5 Screen Actors Guild Awards, plus many others. She is a classic. She started on stage. She was trained classically. She is one of the best actresses to come along in Hollywood and British film history. Then there were a number of other actors and actresses that were also classically trained, which you see throughout here, and I won't go through all of them. But some other notable actors, you have Burgess Meredith. Some people might recognize him immediately from either from the Rocky movies, from Batman. He was, of course, the Penguin in the 60s. He was in, more recently, from the 90s, Grumpy Old Men. And like Laurence Olivier, Maggie Smith, he's been around forever. I think one of his first film was Of Mice and Men in 1939. He was in films decade after decade. A classic, died in 1997. And of course, Harry Hamlin, who plays Perseus. He is most recently, you might recognize him from Mayfair Witches. He is in that series. We reviewed it here, the first season. He was also in 80 for Brady, which I have not seen. He was in LA Law. I think we just saw a picture of him there. So he's been in and around Hollywood and television for quite some time. He is known for this film, most certainly. And then another one I'm just going to mention real quick was Ursula Andress. And the only reason I'm mentioning her is because she had one line and was barely in the film. But because she was a swimsuit model and had a Swiss accent, she actually got more notoriety for this film than she probably deserved. She was more known as a Bond girl, not surprisingly. But there are a bunch of actresses like Claire Bloom, Susan Fleetwood, and these were all classically trained British actors that were trained for the stage. They were in Shakespearean plays and all this stuff that were used in this fantastic work that we're discussing tonight. So that's the film. Oh, I know what number 5 is now. I just realized, I just saw my notes. Now I want to talk about, before we get to that, the creator of the special effects. Ray Harryhausen. He is a legend in Hollywood history. And I know for a lot of modern audiences, like my children, as they walk past the screen when I was reviewing the film today, giggling as they walk off as the Kraken comes on land. Ray Harryhausen was a classic. He was before his time when he started. One of his first films that he did this work on was King Kong, 1933. He then went on to do Mighty Joe Young, which is another film with a gorilla, and he got awards for that. This work he was doing was phenomenal. He actually trained with George Pal and the Puppetoons, which just as a Wizard of Oz side, George Pal was the first person to create another Green Witch after the Wizard of Oz. Ray Harryhausen, I want to just call him Harryhausen. Ray Harryhausen actually created the third witch that had green skin in Hollywood history. So this is just kind of interesting Wizard of Oz tidbits, which everything leads back to Wizard of Oz in my world. But yeah, so he has been trained decade after decade to do this work. And, by 1981, some of it may have even been a little bit off even at that point, but his style and the legacy he has is quite amazing. He's known for the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, which is 1958. And Courtney's favorite movie, It Came from Beneath the Sea, and Jason and the Argonauts, which is probably why he got selected for this, because of course the writer also wrote that film. He was chosen to do dinosaurs in the mid-60s on Hammer Films. And the list goes on. I mean, his legacy is quite phenomenal, whether you like it or you don't. I mean, by today's standards, of course, it looks really hokey, but this was then. This was not now. This is pre-CGI.
Which I like better, honestly.
I do too.
So yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It's something we grew up with, and we can talk about that later about how we like it and how we don't. But he's a legend, the one who created these things. Then finally, the last one is the legacy of this film. And I'm not going to discuss the details of what they created in as far as Greek gods and that stuff. We can do that after, because that's a whole nother can of worms, getting into the comparison between this and the origin material. We can do that after, but I'm just going to mention the 2010 film that came out. We've seen Clash of the Titans, which then had Wrath of the Titans after that. And I just thought I'd mention that to know that there is a 2010 film. It has Liam Neeson, Ralph Fiennes, Sam Worthington, and a bunch of other people. It was successful, though critically, again, just similar to this, it was tanked. But they did come up with Wrath of the Titans, and then they were going to do a Revenge of the Titans, but that was canceled. I guess Wrath of the Titans wasn't angry enough, and it just didn't work, so they went on. So that's the basics you need to know. I think the biggest thing that I didn't cover is the comparison of this film to the origin material, and there are some things that are accurate, and there's a lot of stuff that is inaccurate, and a lot of stuff that they made up completely, as one reviewer said, pulled out their butts. So
are you sure the remake was real? Because to me, it sounds like one of those urban legends, like Sinbad was in a genie movie or something like that. One of those things that's not real. Like some people go, oh, there was another version of the Wicker Man. No, there was not. I can't find it. I don't think there was another version of Clash of the Titans.
There was.
No.
There was. It was just called Immortals.
It's a different. The 6,000, 3,000.
Rob, would you please stop photoshopping and playing with CGI images, trying to confuse me on our show?
So there's a few things that I will discuss that bother me about this film, and there's some other things about this movie that need to be brought out, but I'm going to save that because I know that you guys have so much to say about this classic Hollywood feature.
I want to talk again about Medusa, but we'll get there a little bit later on. I want to talk about her. Don't let me forget.
I do need to unpack some childhood trauma around the owl.
The owl.
So in 1978, there was a TV series called Battlestar Galactica that was remade in 2004. And in Battlestar Galactica, one of the characters has a dog who tragically loses his life in the Cylon invasion. And to comfort his owner, scientists make a robot dog whose name is Muffet 2.
Yeah.
As a kid, I got Muffet 2 mixed up in my head with Bubo, and I spent years convinced that Athena's owl had been like sacrificed to make the robot owl. And so as an adult, I watched the movie and was just blown out of the water that the owl survived and that Booba was created so that Athena would not have to give up her pet. So that was a mind-blowing moment for me. I do really love this film. It is part of my favorite genre, which is movies based in Greek mythology that just go completely off the rails. Immortals, that I mentioned earlier, I think is the capstone of that. The movie did make me gay, but not because of Harry Hamlin, because of the goddesses just throwing devastating shade at each other. I just thought that was brilliant. I loved every moment of when Athena and Aphrodite and Thetis and Hera are just very politely tearing each other down. I thought that was brilliant. I love it overall. I really do. I think the effects hold up, with the exception of Medusa. Medusa makes me unhinged with rage because of that tail. There are no rattlesnakes in Greece. I am from Texas and I know these things.
Maybe they're extinct now. Maybe there were back then.
Well, they could have.
Yeah, there you go. Boom.
from
Mind
Texas.
blown, Thumper.
We rival
Mind blown.
Australia in terms of nature that will kill you. There are no rattlesnakes in Greece. I just, for
No.
some reason, even when I was younger, I was like, that's not right. That's not right.
St. Patrick drove them out.
Oh, okay. So there were rattlesnakes in Ireland, and then they went to Greece and ended up in Texas.
Yeah.
By way of the Mayflower. Got it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I'm in.
Boom. Boom.
I think I read somewhere that he wanted to have Medusa with the rattlesnake tail so that she could be menacing from afar.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Most certainly that's the effect. I mean, they want to give you that warning, that kind of tension, so they have a.
And that is sort of a horror action movie trope in terms of rattlesnakes showing up where they shouldn't be, because you can hear them but you can't see them. It's like Jaws's fin.
I kind of want to talk about Medusa. We're already on the topic. Do you mind?
No,
Yeah.
please.
This one always bothers me, not because of the rattlesnake. I wasn't smart enough to realize that there were only rattlesnakes in Texas and not in Greece. However, I mean, there are plenty of snakes in Greece, and I mean the kind on two legs. I lived in Greece. But I always felt so angry at poor Medusa. I mean, imagine. You are this beautiful woman, and nobody leaves you alone. And because nobody leaves you alone, then someone turns you into a gorgon. And then you say, you know what? I'm going to go to this little island. Just leave me alone. Please just stay away from me. I am perfectly fine to take care of myself. I don't need you coming to my island. And what do? They go to her island. And then she gets murdered because something that's not even her own fault. She turns people to stone, and they deserved it. So I feel badly for Medusa, for the Gorgon Medusa. I think she's an anti-hero, and she did not get the respect she deserves.
I would agree.
Hear, hear.
But Andromeda's pretty, and Medusa is less pretty as a snake lady. So you have to save Andromeda, right? Isn't that how it works?
I wouldn't.
For 8-year-old Jason, it was very important to save Andromeda. That was one of the first butts I ever saw as a young man. You know, on screen. That was perfect.
That was a very lovely butt. That was very
It was.
lovely butt. This was the first time I'd seen this movie.
Really?
It was the very first time I'd seen this movie. And again, my first subject at school I ever liked was Greek mythology, grade school. And I'm like, oh, a subject I actually like. So that was great. So I'm like, okay, let's get into this. But, and I was completely into the whole thing, but my head was tilted a lot. Like, what? Not only with the mythos things, but it's the owl. That owl is from a different movie. I I mean, I understand the thought of the owl. I understand the magical, but he is like R2D2. He's just like he's from a cartoon movie or something. I
Though I don't mean to interrupt. There were actually automatons around that time. There was a famous one that was a lion. And this is ancient Greece, so that they did have automatons in ancient Greece. In fact, some of the statues of the gods, they would manipulate them so that they could move, and that would convince the cult that they were actually in the presence of these gods.
Okay. Well, I was unaware from that. Again, it was like weird casting to me. That's what it felt like. Odd casting. Like the wrong owl was cast for the movie. And then Harry Hamlin. I mean, he's so pretty, but he just, the look on his face was, he looked like dumber than a box of rocks. Like, oh, there's nothing there. He's pretty, but that's not the face. The only face he ever had.
He does look confused perpetually, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's a little over it. That's a little better. But in this movie, it's like, lips out. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. But again, Al was miscast in my unknowledge.
Was miscast.
Yeah.
The owl was miscast, but I think he makes sense in terms of like when Heather was talking about sword and sorcery films of that period, where there was often the R2D2. There was often the mechanical sidekick comic relief character. And like Muffet. I think that was very, very much a sign of the times and kind of a trope that even in a movie that didn't really need it, they were going to throw it in anyway for the kids.
Yeah, by 1981 though, like the marketing was out in full force, right? Yeah. Because everyone saw how much money George Lucas made from Star Wars. So now you have to shoehorn that future toy in there, right? So you can have plushie owls and action figure owls and owl bubble bath and all kinds of dumb things to make a lot of money for people.
I did have all the toys. I had a Pegasus and a Kraken and all the action figures.
That's
the lunchbox.
That was the another thing that Star Wars really set off. Although there were tie-in toys before, but Star Wars took it to a new level. And yes, there was. Mattel put out the Clash of the Titans toys. We did not have any. I don't remember my brother having any, and I certainly would not have had any because I wasn't a huge fan of this movie as a kid. I remember watching it over and over. The only things I have not watched it since the 80s. Since I was a kid. I didn't really feel the need. The only thing I remember was Andromeda tied up. The eye that the witches had is literally the only things I remembered. And so, and when I started watching it, I thought, oh God, I watched this on HBO 4 million times. I'm going to remember everything. And I literally didn't. Now, when I watched some other movies from the decade, like when I had to review Beastmasters and Conan the Barbarian, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this stuff. But this one, it didn't stick, but I did remember the eye. There it is. I did remember that as soon as they said that. And I did remember, of course, Andromeda being tied to the rock. For some reason, those things stuck in my head.
Were you disappointed with the eye as an adult?
No, there's a lot more I can criticize with this movie than the
eye. Because I watched it today to get ready for tonight, and when they held the eye up, I was like, "That is a paperweight."
It literally is. No,
it didn't move me the way it did when I was younger.
If I could write an essay on the problems with this, but which I can bring up in a minute, but I'm just going to tell you, watching it today, I talked to the screen the whole time and then laughing hysterically. Just I could not stop laughing. This movie, getting back to the owl, is really sort of it's almost like someone said, let's make a movie about the Greek. We need a sword and sorcery film. Let's do Greek mythology. Now let's throw in R2D2 and let's throw in Excalibur and let's throw in this. And they brought all this random stuff in. And then we've got Godzilla with swamp. The thing that came from the swamp. What's that guy?
The creature from the Black Lagoon.
From the Black Lagoon with multiple arms does Godzilla. I don't know what. I'm like,
You can
yeah.
get him, Perseus. You got him, Perseus.
Oh
Right?
my
Like Burgess Meredith there doing some Rocky stuff.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it was like a modge podge of like random stuff to try to make a movie to fit the theme, and I just couldn't get over it. So yeah, there you go. That's my that's my take. But there are some deeper problems with this movie that I'm happy to bring up, but I'll let somebody else speak.
I will say one thing that did make me laugh in watching it today was, you know, there's Calabos, who is stop motion, and then there's the actor playing Calabos.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where he's sitting on his throne and he's talking to Andromeda, and she reaches out to stroke his face. And I noticed, because he's supposed to be physically bigger than everybody else, he's supposed to be this kind of a giant. And the camera cuts to Andromeda's hand, and it's this like tiny little child's hand. It is clearly not a grown-up's hand reaching out to pat him on the face to create that illusion of his size, which struck me as the funniest thing ever today. Like at the time, I think it was a very good effect, but it was one that didn't carry it for that well. It kind of cracked me up.
I think a lot of the stop motion animation doesn't work in this movie, and didn't even work in 1981 when I saw this originally, which is a tale, because it does go kind of back and forth between a real actor and then the stop motion animation version of that actor, and they don't ever seem to really look like the same thing, right? Yeah. The guy who played Calabos was good enough. You didn't need all that extra stuff. It could have just been a dude in a suit. And it's same with Medusa. You didn't need her crawling on the ground like a snake, which she didn't crawl on the ground like a snake anyways. Like they made it harder on themselves, and I think the movie looks worse because of that. Because you saw with Star Wars, practical effects, you know, for the most part, really good costumes and puppetry. And this movie had a budget. It wasn't like it was cheap. They could have done something else and chose not to. No offense to Harryhausen, who was great, but by 1981, most of that had already kind of played out. And boy, Pegasus flying. A tragedy. An absolute tragedy.
The tragedy was when Argos floods at the beginning, and you see all the townspeople go, no, and the water hits them, and they just
God.
They just dissolve.
It was
that
actual water.
Me.
The special effects really feel like 60s. It really feels like Harryhausen from the 60s. And this is 1981. It could have been done differently. It's just wasn't. And I'm gonna have to agree with you, Jason, on that. So
what you're not going to agree with me on is the rest of it, because this movie came out in 1981.
And you loved it.
I was a wee Jason, very little Jason. I loved Greek mythology, was obsessed with Greek mythology. Dad, we have to go see Clash of the Titans. Dad, we have to go see Clash of the Titans. And it worked, and he took me to a drive-in movie theater so I could see Clash of the Titans. That is the IMAX of the 1970s and early 1980s, for those of you who have never experienced a drive-in theater. But the sound is much, much worse. But anyways, totally captivated, loved this movie as a kid. There was something about it. I had some of the toys. I had a Clash of the Titans lunchbox. I did pick it apart, though, because it's not true to the mythology in a lot of places. But still, to see a big budget kind of Greek gods movie as a kid blew my mind. And I've been in love with this film ever since. In the early 2000s, I sat down with my wife to watch it because one of my friends who was of an age as I am, we both wanted our wives to see this film. We were very excited. We were very giggly. We were thrilled to be sharing this masterpiece of cinema with our wives. And when we got done, my wife just looked at me and she goes, "Invisible." That's all he says, Jason. Invisible. That's all she takes from the movie is Harry Hamlin saying invisible. And I was crushed and didn't file for divorce, but I did sleep on the couch for a night.
Jason, I can sympathize with you because I recently visited my dad in Florida, and he said, "You love horror movies. What's your favorite horror movie?" And I said, "The original Wicker Man." He said, "Let's watch it." And I was like, "Great." And about halfway through, I was like, oh, I didn't tell them it was a musical, and this is getting awkward, and nobody is wearing a shirt in this entire thing. I don't remember that at all. So yeah, I have the, I also know the joy of presenting a favorite movie to somebody who goes, I don't.
I mean, as soon as it started, she wasn't excited, but it like went downhill continuously as the movie went along. It didn't ever improve, never improved until the credits started to roll.
I have a reverse situation. So I was watching it today and my kids passed by and giggled, when they saw the creatures and stuff. And then Ben came home and he walked in. He goes, "What are you watching?" I said, "Clash of the Titans. You remember that?" He goes, "No." And he's looking, and then he walks out of the room, and then I see him sinking back. Next thing, he's hooked, and he's talking the television with me. And you have to make dinner. No, we don't. And he's just into it. I'm like, you probably saw this when you were, because he's my age. So I am sure everybody that was from that generation saw this movie. It was on HBO all the time.
And deservedly so.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I mean, it wasn't just a movie; it was also literature, helping children fall in love with the Greek gods.
Speaking of, I did appreciate how in the opening on Olympus, after Zeus becomes a seagull, I guess that's what he does now, and I loved how they understood that some of the audience would not be familiar with Greek mythology, so they were going to give a real quick crash course through dialogue. So it is, "Zeus, you are king of the gods. You are right, Hera, my wife, queen of the gods. Aphrodite, goddess of love. What do you think about this? Athena, you're the goddess of wisdom. You seem to," like, it was very like, let's introduce everybody, but also give a quick rundown just in case you were not raised with Greek mythology like some of us were.
I remember my first experience with this film would have been about 1989. So I did not see it in the cinemas. I did not see it. But I am of this certain age where when they would teach a subject in school, then they would have a film that you would have, and they would roll in the big television.
Yeah.
CR that was played too many times. You get the lines in it. That's what I remember. And I was in the back of the class. I think we had to carve soap to look like Greek gods or something. I was busy. I was busy carving soap. I mean, really exciting. Oh, but I do have a Greek story. I did live in Greece. I was a singing blackjack dealer. I played Freddie Mercury. And we had the ABBA twos and the Beatle twos. Like, we only had two impersonators of the bands, and I was a solo Freddie Mercury. Anyway, nonetheless, so they were having a new moon party, and I had convinced all of my castmates to rip their hotel sheets off the bed. We were going to go to this new moon white party wearing hotel bed sheets. And we did. So we go, and I'm sitting at the bar. And now, mind you, this is Corfu. I'm on Corfu Island, which is fairly conservative. It is across the sea from Albania. It's fairly conservative. And he sees, these other ladies. He says, "Oh, who are you? Who are you?" And the one said, "I am Aphrodite, the goddess of love." This whole sort of rundown. And then he looks at me and he says, "And who are you supposed to be?" And I said, "Well, duh, Mercury, duh." And he went, "No, our gods are not gay." And I went,
"What?"
I went, "Did you actually ever read any of your mythology? Because I think they were." No, we were never gay.
With a Transylvanian accent.
Well, my Greek accent is lousy, so I went.
Close enough.
It worked.
I do have a couple of my favorite quotes since Courtney is not here to provide quotes. I can give one or two.
Ooh, invisible. That's it right there.
There's that. There is Maggie Smith, like deadpan, but like fuming with revenge and vengeance, saying, "My priests of Joppa are loyal. I will speak to them through dreams and omens." And that line pops into my head randomly sometimes. Like when a customer is like, "Well, why can't I get a cash refund?" I'm like, well, my priests of Joppa are loyal. Like, I'm just like, but don't mess with me.
Bumper. Thumper, you are having quotes from this movie pop into your head randomly. This tells me everything I need to know about you now.
I never said I was healthy or well adjusted.
I love you even more now. I love you even more.
The other moment of the film, in terms of the quotes, there's a scene where the other goddesses are kind of having to break it to Hera that Zeus cat's around. And Thetis says, well, once he even tried to ravish me disguised as a cuttlefish. And Athena says, in the most cutting way, what did you do? So she called Thetis a trollop. And then Thetis responds, I beat him at his own game. I turned myself into a shark. And then they all laugh. And then they're friends again. But young little baby gay Thumper was like, one day I want to be that catty. Like, I just was, it was amazing.
They were catty. They were catty. All right. What hasn't said? Who what said? Everybody was holding off for the end. It's not to the end.
Well, I do have one more thing about Dame Maggie Smith. One of my favorite films that she is in is Murder by Death. And
yes!
It is not one that you can really watch today because they take a lot of the old tropes from the 1930s radio. And so you couldn't really make that film today, but it has Truman Capote in it and Ms. Dame Maggie Smith. Oh, and what's his name? He played Columbo. Peter Falk.
There you go.
Fuck that guy. Peter Falk. Anyway, yes. So this is they take a lot of these 1930s radio shows like Sam Diamond, who's now Sam Spade, or Sam Spade is Sam Diamond, whichever way it is. You've got oh goodness, I can't even think. You've got Nick and Nora.
Yeah, some Agatha Christie-esque.
Yeah. There is a Mrs. Marpole, but she's not Mrs. Marpole. There's a Hercule Poirot, but he's not Hercule Poirot. I mean, it's a great film, and it would never work past 1973 or whatever it was. It would never work, but I love it. I hate to say.
And Heather, you will be greatly relieved because by bringing up that movie, Richard made me realize that it's not Clash of the Titan lines that pop into my head. It is Maggie Smith lines that pop into my head.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you've been redeemed. I'm not going to hex you tonight for that.
I appreciate that.
I want to bring up one other thing with the movie, not to take it too seriously, but I said earlier that I could write an essay on this because one of the things that's interesting with these sword and sorcery films, particularly when we're talking about one that's supposed to be based on the Greek gods, a lot of the sword and sorcery films at this time became they had a very strong Christian structure, which is very interesting when you're talking about a film that's based on Greek gods, a religion that has nothing to do with Christianity. But this is true for most of them. And this was because by the late 70s, we had a turn in our culture and we entered into the Reagan conservative era. And a lot of our films turned away and were rejecting what had happened in the 60s and the progressive nature of the 60s and 70s. And we're moving into this very, very Christian. This is the beginning of the Satanic Panic began. You have a lot of fundamentalist movements starting up. So these sword and sorcery films, as I was watching them in with respect to religion and respect to treatment of women, etc., which is related to the treatment of witchcraft, is that they get very, very conservative. And they also, so you can see that here with the addition of a character that's not part of the Calibos character, which I always want to say Caliban from Shakespeare. You have this satyr character, which is very much a devil-like character being the villain against a Zeus that's very much portrayed as a godlike figure. And you have the save the virgin, get married at the end. That's his reward. This is a very, very common structure that comes out of a Christian value system. And it's in most of these sword and sorcery films. You can find it everywhere. Snakes being connected with an evil, that's Conan the Barbarian, etc. So that's interesting. And the other piece in this is there is a notice they lean heavily on a racist structure as well, which I'm just going to point out is that Calibos is dark skin, but it's more than that. If you notice the symbolism that's attached to his area, it's very much connected to old Hollywood racist tropes, which watching it when I was, 1981, I did not notice. Watching it today after all the work I've done in film and studying symbolism that comes out as trends, it would really bother me. It really bothered me so much. And I hate to bring that down. Sorry, Jason, to bring this out and to make everybody have to pay attention to something ugly, but that is something that Hollywood did. And we have to call it out when we see it. Even if we enjoy the film, we have to call those things out.
I'm glad you did, though, because I remember that scene where Andromeda's soul is kind of coming through to meet with him. And the way his, I guess, henchmen were portrayed was rubbing me the wrong way, and I couldn't put my finger on what was bothering me about it. And
it's also the symbolism behind him is very much supposed to look native. It's very much what Hollywood had done through into the 70s.
Yeah.
And really didn't come out of it until you get into the 80s and 90s, and then we can talk about how much that's gone away. But that particular trope, that particular theme is still sitting there in this movie. Yeah. And it needs to be called out, I think.
It was.
Do you know what?
That's good.
Oh, do you know what else is awful about this movie? Rob, can you put the cast picture up again, where it kind of tells everybody who's in there? I mean, yeah. Do you notice how many people have red hair? Which, while watching the other day, I was like, that dude is not Greek. Why does that dude look Scottish? Right? I mean, it's one thing, all of these movies only tend to cast British actors, right? And as ancient Greeks, for whatever reason, with the exception, apparently, of Burgess Meredith. But the red hair really threw me for a loop. It would have been great if he had spoken with like a real Scottish accent or something.
I firmly believe that if a movie about ancient Greece or ancient Rome came out and the actors did not have British accents, American audiences would not accept them as Greek and Roman.
Foreign.
Yeah.
All foreign people have British accents in American movies.
We've got your haggis right here, Perseus. That would have been amazing to me. That would have given it another star.
Calabos did not exist in ancient Greek mythology. That's created by the writers. That was totally created by the writers. And I wonder if that came out of Caliban and came out of Shakespeare. I'm not sure. Or just he wanted to create a devil character, and that was it. And they named him Calabos.
His throne did have moose antlers, which I thought was odd. Kind of like the rattlesnakes. I was like, oh, that's not Greek.
Well, this was before the biblical flood, so a lot of these animals lived in other places.
So the moose would have been native.
Right.
Okay.
Snakes and the rattlesnakes.
Okay. And so after the flood, because the moose can swim, they are a prey of orca. And so, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You are welcome, Thumper. You are welcome.
I will never I will always suspend disbelief from here on out.
That is beautiful. Anything else, Heather? Things you were holding back?
No, I'm good. I've said my piece.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any more quotes for Courtney's sake?
I have a quote. Bobu, Boo Boo, Babo, whatever his name is. I remember I didn't watch the film, and it's been a long time since I watched it, but I remember something along the lines of
eerily accurate.
That was good.
Eerily
that was really good.
That's owl. My quote for the day. That's my Courtney Buckley.
Thank you. That is good. Miscast owl and all. All right, Jason, do we have a Mankey movie moment? My master.
We kind of do. Kind of probably have a runaway train wreck tonight. But if you remember the early 80s, they were a time for rockin' movie soundtracks. There was the entire soundtrack, of course, to the animated film Heavy Metal, which I loved, probably because it had cartoon boobs in it. Also, the great Sammy Hagar song, Heavy Metal. And, of course, the Kenny Loggins classic, I'm All Right, from Caddyshack. And, of course, who can forget Kenny's Footloose, just a few years later from, of course, Footloose. There were so many classic tunes during this period of time. And Clash of the Titans was no different than those other movies. It, too, had an amazing movie soundtrack. The standout track from that album was the first solo work of one Ronnie James Dio. In 1981, Dio was a member of Black Sabbath, having replaced Ozzy Osbourne in 1979, but he hungered to do some solo work. And when the producers of Clash of the Titans approached him to do a song for the picture, he readily agreed. Though often forgotten today, Dio's Clash of the Titans, Beware Her Gaze was a worldwide hit, just like the movie. Dio's song sadly peaked at number 41 on the American Top 40 charts, but it did hit number 1 in Latvia, Angola, and North Korea. Because of copyright issues, it's impossible to stream Clash of the Titans, Beware Her Gaze in most of the world today, so I thought I would just sing it all for you tonight. Are you ready for this?
Very much so. Do I need a lighter to hold up?
Cast adrift at sea as a baby, never had time to say maybe. Grab a sword, a helmet, and a shield. Perseus will never ever yield. Clash of the Titans, the gods, they are mightin'. Beware her gaze, will turn you to stone, and you won't want a bone. Magical horse flying high in the sky. Ancient Greek heroes, they always try. Princess with her hair so pretty, she will sing along to this ditty. Clash of the Titans, the gods, they are a mightin'. Beware her gaze, will turn you to stone, and you won't want a bone. Crawling around like a snake, your heart she will break. One gaze, your final mistake, the last one you'll ever make. Medusa. This is killing my voice. Clash of the Titans, the gods, they are a mightin'. Beware her gaze, will turn you to stone, and you won't want a bone. Clash of the Titans, Perseus fly on your magic horse. Clash of the Titans, only look in your shield. Clash of the Titans, unchain her from that rock. Clash of the Titans, legends in the stars. Woo, there you go. That was it. That was our movie minute. I'm really sorry for all of that.
Jason, I have to say, in those glasses, I will literally believe anything you say.
Yes, that's why I got them, just to look smarter. I felt like I had to up the game.
Beautiful. Very, very, very smart. That's beautiful. And it's ditty. That melody is going to stick in my head for so long.
Yeah, Ari just yelled, "Are you dying, Jason? What's going on in that room?"
And he rehearsed for hours. All right. It is time to rate this fine film. Wands up, wands down, and we really need all of you, Aaron and Tabitha and Colin and Carl and Kevin. Wands up, wands down.
It holds up better than people think it does, except for the Harryhausen stuff. Clash of the Titans. Ah.
It's a point in time.
So we got up for me, up for Thumb, up for Jason, and completely down for Heather, and a completely down for Richard. That is a down Pegasus.
It's a down Pegasus.
So
I was going to vote down, but then Jason reminded me of the classic theme song that really brought back childhood memories. So this is his fault.
This is his fault. There you go. The upwind. Wands up for the gods, says Tabitha. My magical God-given sword is up. Wands up for Jason's song. Wands up, horns up. Well, I think Heather and Richard-Lael, you are outvoted on this one. Oh, wait.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Well, again, I could not figure out Al, but the movie in its weirdness held me completely. So I'm giving it a wands up. Anybody know what we're doing next week? Wands down, says Mary Jane. Hi, Mary Jane.
Oh, some of you are just hurting me.
Just
hurting me. My soul, it hurts.
Well, hurt him back.
Do you want to hurt him?
Do you really want to make me cry?
Cry?
Yeah, don't make me sing another song next week. Nobody wants that.
So speaking of next week, do we know what we're doing?
The Burbs.
The Burbs.
Ooh.
The Burbs. Okay, everybody, do we know what year? There's only one, so it doesn't matter what
There's
year.
only one The Burbs, I believe.
Tom Hanks, The Burbs.
Tom Hanks, The Burbs.
Okay. I wonder if it has an owl.
I
I
thought-
actually
they
do.
Needs more owl.
I do have two. I have two plushy owls, a big one and a little one, not from the movie though, but they're Willows, my dogs. So the next week, the Burbs. Does anybody have anything coming up that they want to talk about in our last few minutes?
I do. Jason and I will be at Austin Witch Fest in a couple months.
Oh,
And also, I would like to point out that this is my 5th appearance on Witch's Movie Coven.
You get the
And
Five
what-
Timers jacket.
I'm going to treat myself to a Bling Phillip.
yay!
That's going to be my reward.
Perfect. Yeah, a jacket and a Bling Phillip. I think that is perfect. So, Witch Fest and so how everybody can find that from you guys, follow you, look you, everything
Absolutely.
else. Richard-Lael.
I'll be in Scotland next year. I think June or July. I think it's July of next year. I can't remember, but I'll be there. You can join Sacred Tours. Traceless Tours. That's it. Tracelesstours.com. You can find me there. You can also find me at this pillow. You can buy that pillow and you can snuggle up with me every single night, like any one of my paramours ever have wanted to do, but don't because I'm a hermit. And maybe because I impersonate an owl so well.
Invisible.
You do.
You do that very well.
All right. Heather.
Well, I am going to be in Washington, D.C. next week, and I am going to be talking to religion journalists about paganism and witchcraft. We're running a panel to demonstrate what pagans and witches and heathens and brujas do in front of journalists. So that's really exciting. And then I get a little break, but we really start up for Mystic South. Mystic South is in July in Atlanta. So it's July 11th, 12th, and 13th this year. So I'm on the board. So work for that is going to get rolling and get very busy starting April and May. So that's what I'm up to right now.
Thank you. I just, as of today, booked Midwest Meta Paracon the weekend of April 12th through 13th. I was supposed to be doing something else, but that got postponed due to somebody having surgery. So it's in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Woo! And it's going to be fun. Lots of paranormal people. I think I'm going to be doing a gallery, and I literally got my plane tickets like an hour ago. So I'm really happy about that. So that's what I have coming up the next thing, and that's not for a couple weeks. So except for my book, you can pre-order my book now, and I'm going to be looking all sorts of book signings and be having it all sorts of paracons. Look at, he has a copy. I can't wait to get my copy. It's so cute. It's cute and little. Like, oh, and she has a copy. Oh, thank you. And Jason just taped my show today. Your new book, you didn't even show it up, but it's fabulous. Priest, yeah.
And
By
April
August.
16th through 20th, I will be in Seattle, Washington at the Spring Mysteries, which is a reenactment of the ancient mysteries at Eleusis, because I'm a big lover of all of the Greek mythology stuff, in part because of the awesomeness of this high wands up film that we reviewed tonight.
I would like to add that
Jason,
Go
you're I just want to ask, is you're going to the ATC people that are outside of Seattle? For they do that every spring for like decades. They've been doing
It's in a hotel now, so it's easier, and it's in Seattle proper.
It's not in their land. It used to be on their own land.
Used to be like in a cave,
yeah,
near a seashore, but many people died, so they don't do it there anymore. That's not true.
No, they used to do it on their own land, I think.
Yes,
That was outside of Seattle.
I would also like to add that if you would like a more accurate take on Greek religion and mythology, you should check out this book, which is Modern Witchcraft with the Greek Gods by Estrella Taylor and one Jason Mankey.
Yay!
A personal favorite.
Oh,
thank you.
And
all of the Witch Movie Coven books end up over here.
If we're showing off Greek God book, I'm going to pull up another one. I didn't write it. Nobody here wrote it. It's called The Waters of Nemesis, and it is by Gwendolyn Reese, and she is a devotee of Apollo. And this book is an excellent, excellent guide to ancient Greek religion in modern day. So it's another one you can do if you're interested and Calaboss is not in here, and she doesn't mention Harryhausen once.
What?
That book's terrific, and Gwendolyn's terrific. Highly recommended.
Yes, Gwendolyn is the organizer, one of the organizers of Sacred Space, which is a pagan event that's happening this coming weekend.
Like right now, I know people who are there. Yeah.
Someday, my big goal in life. Yes, I was in USA Today. That's pretty awesome. But my big goal is to actually be invited to a pagan conference, not just a ghost conference. Someday.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
I know it's hard. It's a hard crossover. I don't know why.
We'll just start a pagan ghost conference.
Yeah.
That's my book combines the two, haunted dolls and magical puppets. I am bridging those. We're going to do haunted doll events with spooky stuff and then puppets with witchy magic stuff. So yes, excellent. I'm single-handedly trying to combine these beautiful worlds. Anyway, it is that time. We have one more thing to do. You guys tell your friends. I'll come back next week because we're going to do this again with the Burbs. Got to figure out what dolls we can bring for that. Heather, your girl is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. So is yours.
Well, thank you. What does this sound like, Richard-Lael?
Should we elbows
cackle? No, we'll cackle. 1, 2, 3. Yeah!